welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted, I guess, to just talk. I lost my dog. So this was not something unexpected. We knew that this day was coming. And as of today, I think it's been a month or close to a month since we had to put her down. So it wasn't an accident, it was planned. But sorry about the noise, the windows are open. But, you know, we knew that this day was coming. She was very old, she was about 16 and a half. And we had seen, a decline, quite a bit of a decline, especially within the last year. And in the last few months, it's just been, I mean, you could really tell. This is not the first time I've lost a dog, but a lot of what's gone on is unexpected. And this is going to be kind of a two-part video. The next video that I'm going to make is going to be how to cope with the loss of a pet while you're chronically ill, because let me tell you, a lot of things happened. Like I said, this wasn't a surprise, but what happened after was definitely I don't know why I didn't expect to feel the way that I felt, or to, or for my body to respond the way that it did. So I've learned a few things from this experience. I know I'm not the only one that has gone through this. As a matter of fact, the same day that we put down our dog, our neighbor put down hers. They were close to the same age. And so, this isn't a unique experience, but it is how can I say it, a very delicate situation, especially if your health is not that great. And I will talk about that in the other video. But anyways, you guys may have heard her in some of my videos that I filmed in my room. She would kind of walk around, she would whine. She had dementia, and it was advancing pretty fast. And so I kind of knew, I was like, I know that this is going to happen. Her last checkup was, I think, in November when she had her vaccines. And so, the doctor or the vet was like, she's just kind of an old dog. She's just doing old dog stuff. And I was like, okay, so I guess we still have time. But within the last, probably from February to March, within a month, her decline was, it just went, pretty bad. So my plan was, and a lot of you guys know that, my sister and her husband are living with us right now, with their dog. So we knew that they were going to be coming to live with us for a while they saved money to buy a house. And, I'm possibly planning a trip, a medical trip to Mexico. And so I kind of had a game plan of what I was going to do. And I had already told my sister, because the dog is actually my sister's, or it was my sister's, but I kind of took over once I moved back home. And so I had told my sister, I said, it's probably going to happen soon, but I really didn't think it was going to happen that soon. And she said that she was going to go with me, when I just finally decided to put her down and all of that. So I knew that I wasn't going to be alone. And I highly recommend that if there is someone that can accompany you to this process, that you take the offer, because I don't know how I would have felt doing this alone. On top of the fact that my dog, she was still physically active. It was just her mind that was really gone, but physically she was still very, pretty mobile. But also very, very anxious. That was the other issue, is that she had a lot of anxiety, and so she would get stuck in corners. Even if she wasn't actually stuck in the corner, she would panic because she didn't know how to turn around and get out of that corner. And so I started seeing that she was actually like, she'd stand in a corner, start whining, then barking. And it was kind of funny at first, until I noticed that she was actually like peeing because she was so scared. And so that's when I started to realize that this probably wasn't a pleasant experience for her. And as those of us who are chronically ill know, having, a constant level of distress every day is not fun. And, I started to kind of really think about that because, if I don't like it, and I can talk and I can tell people and I can go to doctors and I can advocate for myself, I thought to myself how horrible that feels for a little animal that can't really say anything. And, I was kind of putting it off. Like I said, my plan was probably, my sister moved in mid-April. I was thinking of taking the dog mid-May and then taking my trip at the beginning of June. Um, but my dog, like I said, she wasn't showing any physical signs of distress. She was still going to the bathroom. I mean, she was going to the bathroom in the house, but she was still going to the bathroom. She could still do that. She was still eating. She was still walking. Um, her back legs were kind of, not great, but she was walking and she could actually walk for quite a long time, because she would just pace and pace and pace throughout the house. So I was like, well, at least, her legs are fine. So I had a game plan. And then, I've been consulting with clinics in Mexico, and I was like planning my trip for June. The one clinic that I wanted to go to just kind of, I don't know, they were having some issues, so there were some delays, and it would take forever for them to get back to me. And so I was like, well, you know what? If I postpone the trip until August or September, I'm fine because at least I'll have the dog. I'll get to spend extra time with my dog. For whatever reason, I really thought that she was still going to be around, that I was going to be able to get her to her 17th birthday in October. I felt almost like it was just optional for me to put her down, like it wasn't going to be a necessity. Um, and so I was like, you know what? Maybe this is a sign that, I'm meant to stay here and be with her and take care of her, even though it was becoming increasingly difficult for me to take care of her because I've also been having my own issues. And you guys know about that if you've been watching my Exosomes playlist. This past year has been very, very hard for me. And so I'm managing my stuff and her, being very old, basically being an elderly dog, and having to take care of her, having to carry her outside to go to the bathroom, and those types of things. So I don't know, for whatever reason, I felt like, she's just old. As long as I'm watching her and taking care of her, she should be fine. So the same week that my sister was set to move in, so they finally sold their house and had to start moving their stuff out. They were going to be moving all their stuff in on Saturday and officially staying with us on Saturday. It was, I think, the week of April 14th, because I think that was the day we put her down. My dog, like I said, she has dementia. She would, walk around in little circles and then, maybe eventually lay down or wander around and then eventually lay down. She would pee in the house, but then eventually she would come back to my room or I would bring her back to my room and she would lay down and sleep. And suddenly, I noticed that she was actually sleeping less. So she would actually sleep quite a bit. I would pick her up, take her outside to go pee, then she would go back to my room and sleep more. And now she was not sleeping as much. So like by 11 a.m., I would take her outside to go potty. We would come back in. She would try to settle down and then she would just get back up. So I was noticing there was less downtime and more being up, wandering, pacing, getting stuck in corners, things like that. Also going under my bed. We had a few incidents where she would force herself under my recliner, which my recliner is only maybe 3 to 4 inches off of um, the floor. And of course there's a lot of metal and stuff. So those incidents, and also going under my bed where I have stuff, those were the things that would really put me on edge. So I started noticing that every time I left the house to go run an errand, I was always on edge. And I was always telling, my mom, like, hey, can you keep an eye on her? Make sure that she doesn't get into anything. So there was this growing anxiety because my sister was going to move in and they were going to be bringing furniture and stuff into our house, heavy things. And I was like, I can't watch her 24/7. Like, there's other things, I go out to the swap meet on the weekends. I mean, obviously I could skip it for one weekend, but I was starting to have a lot of anxiety whenever I would leave the house and leave her here. And I couldn't take her with me. She was too old to go places with me. Um, so there was that, but I was like, well, I'm here with her. And then that week, I think the Tuesday before my sister moved in on Saturday, my dog just started walking around and around and around and around in circles. I mean, nonstop, just going around and around and around and around. I would go out for my walk. I would leave her, just doing her little circles. I would come back from a 40-minute walk. She was still going around in circles, and then she would continue just walking around in circles. So she was no longer pacing the house. She was just going around and around and around and around in circles. And it was almost like some kind of glitch, like she had malfunctioned and she was just totally out of it going around in these circles. Obviously, I knew that it was something dementia related, um, but I also read that it could be, that it's definitely neurological. Could be, it is a thing with dementia, but it could also be like a brain tumor or maybe some other kind of brain issue. And so that was Tuesday. She continued to do it Wednesday, and then she continued to do it Thursday. She continued to do it. She started doing it and then just never stopped. She would go to sleep at night, but the next morning, by the time I took her out to go potty and she would come back in, she would just start doing the circles again. And so I I was really concerned that it could be something worse. And so on Thursday, I think on Wednesday, I called the vet. And it might actually have been on Thursday. It's kind of a blur at this point because my dad, he had already said, I'm not going with you guys. I don't, he doesn't want to see that. He saw the state that she was in and he was like, you need to just do this. Like, you need to call. He said, I'll go with you, whatever he was desperate because he could see that she was in distress. We could all see that there was something really wrong going on with her. And I knew that at that point, she just wasn't with us anymore mentally. I mean, she hadn't been for a while, but this was another level of just, she just was totally mentally gone. And of course, if it was a brain tumor, I didn't want to put her through that either. And that would only continue to get worse. So, in a matter of a few days, she just took a turn. And then, of course, you know, sometimes she would still try to go under the bed or go behind the recliner. It was me constantly on my feet, getting her out of corners, getting her out of these situations. And then knowing that my sister was going to move in on Saturday. So we made the appointment for Friday, and my sister and her husband went with me, and we said our last goodbyes. I don't want to cry, and she's gone. So it was a very difficult decision. Well, let me put it this way: it wasn't a difficult decision because we knew that it had to happen. She was very old. Our neighbor's dog was actually, physically falling apart. And I didn't want her to get to that point where she couldn't pee anymore or where she was passing blood in her stool, vomiting, things like that. And I feel like she was getting close to that, but her organs were still holding up except for her brain. Her brain was just not doing well. And I didn't want to see a deterioration like that, a physical deterioration, especially if there was some kind of brain problem involved. And I mean, dementia is a brain problem, and we know that eventually gets worse. So I feel like the decision itself was not difficult. What came after was very, very hard. I did not expect to feel the level of loneliness, the level of sadness that I felt. I did get physically ill. I had stomach pain for over a week. My mouth broke out in cold sores. It was just something that I did not expect. I mean, the absolute reaction of my body, just the horrible sadness and the loneliness that I felt was just awful. And I actually saw a TED Talk. Sorry, my stomach is growling. I saw a TED Talk, and it was a vet, and she was talking about the loss of a pet. And she was talking about all of the factors that actually make the loss of a pet harder. And one of them, I think she said the one that was the worst, or that she saw was the most difficult contributing factor to the loss of a pet, is disability. And I mean, I saw that TED Talk and I was just, in tears. It was just, I wish I would have seen it before, but knowing now what I didn't know before this, I think if I would have known that I was going to go through this, I would have held on to her longer, which would have prolonged her suffering. So in a way, I'm glad that I didn't know how horrible this was going to feel. And I'm glad that I was able to do what was best for her, not what was best for me in a way. So there are certain things that I would recommend, and I'm going to do another video on that, but this was a very, very hard experience, and just the way that it hit me was just something so unexpected. And I don't know why. I have lost a dog before, by the way. This isn't the first one that I've lost. The one that before, the dog that we actually had when we got her, we only had them together for about a year or so because he died in an accident. And I didn't have as long of a relationship with him as with her. And he was actually my dog. But for whatever reason, when he passed, I felt relief because there was a lot of other issues in the family. And I actually wasn't really around that much. I think I was in college for a while, and then I was in a new relationship when he passed. So there was a certain amount of relief when he passed. So for whatever reason, I felt like I was going to experience the same thing with Sandy, that she was going, that not that letting go of her was going to be easier on me because I could feel it physically and mentally. And I thought it was going to be the same thing, and it was it was not at all the same thing. Like, it was really, really bad. So yeah, I felt almost kind of blindsided, even though, like, we knew that it was going to be sad. We knew that it was going to be hard. I did not anticipate this level of sadness. So I'm going to make another video talking about things that you can do to make this an easier process. And my heart goes out to anybody out there with a disability that is taking care of an aging pet and that knows that the inevitable is coming, because it is very hard and it is very painful. But I do think there are things that you can do to mitigate the pain of the loss, or at least to help you. And I feel like, why don't people talk about this more? It's especially for those of us who are disabled, who are isolated, who don't really have a lot of companionship outside of our homes. This is just something this is horrible. I mean, it's one of the most horrible experiences, next to losing, a family member, a human family member. This is horrible. So thank you so much for joining me, you guys. I'm kind of trying to do these videos on the fly. I want to make sure that I have some stuff for you guys over the next few months. And also, I haven't had a lot of alone time here at home. So, yeah, thank you so much for joining me and for hearing me out during this difficult time. And I will see you in the next one. Take care.